At the top of the city's food chain sits the Carter Group, a massive, generational corporate dynasty built over decades. They possess the kind of entrenched wealth that projects an aura of untouchable authority across the entire market. Generational wealth often breeds a specific kind of blindness. When a family name sits on a towering headquarters year after year, the leaders inside start to confuse inherited momentum with invincibility. They assume the empire will simply run itself. That arrogance leads to highly emotional, irrational decisions. The patriarch viewed his illegitimate son, Ethan, exclusively as a liability, a weak mistake that threatened the family's carefully curated image. To protect the dynasty's reputation, he ordered Ethan's immediate removal. With a single command to security, Ethan was thrown into the freezing night. He was stripped of his home, his family name, and any financial safety net, left entirely isolated on the street with zero capital. But sudden destitution often acts as a brutal filter. Instead of yielding to the pain of rejection, Ethan used it as a baseline. He decided right then to decode the deep mechanics of money and power, channeling his humiliation into a cold, calculated drive to build his own leverage. This exposes a fatal flaw in legacy empires. The entity that eventually dismantles them is rarely a recognizable competitor sitting in a rival boardroom. It is almost always a highly motivated, disenfranchised outsider that the empire itself created and discarded. Ethan's incubation phase started at the absolute bottom of the economic ladder. He traded grueling, minimum-wage physical labor, literally sweeping debris and fixing broken machines, to secure a tiny foothold in a local mechanic shop. Ethan spent his days observing the friction points of the business, the inventory errors, the manual record-keeping, and the lost time that drained the shop's profits. This grassroots exposure provided an unfiltered understanding of what real-world operational bottlenecks looked like for small owners. This diagram illustrates the market structure he identified. Up here at the top, enterprise software is heavily saturated, with massive conglomerates fighting over the same wealthy clients. But look at this massive empty space at the bottom. Small businesses were entirely ignored, leaving a vast white space for tailored B2B tech solutions. While his days were physical, his nights were academic. Ethan spent hours studying software architecture and business theory, building the first iterations of a digital platform designed specifically to automate the manual inefficiencies he witnessed on the shop floor. He internalized a crucial rule: money is simply a temporary tool, but systems generate power. When it came time to pitch his tech startup to his mentor for initial funding, Ethan had no family connections to lean on. He secured the capital by demonstrating a working prototype that solved a concrete problem, backed by a deep comprehension of the market gap and unyielding will. True disruptive innovation almost never trickles down from the top. It incubates right here, at the neglected bottom of the market, growing completely out of sight from the apex predators until it's far too large to stop. This chart tracks the direct result of targeting an ignored market. Ethan's startup aggressively scales upward, driven by rapid customer acquisition and relentless execution across dozens of cities. But watch what happens when we introduce the legacy player. This heavier line is the Carter Group. Despite starting with a massive advantage, their inability to adapt to modern markets causes revenue to sharply plummet, putting them on a collision course with the rising disruptor. This drop is a direct result of structural rigidity. The legacy empire is rotting from the inside, completely unequipped to navigate modern financial turbulence. The infrastructure that once made them strong now makes them hopelessly slow. Right as this decay peaks, Ethan receives a critical intelligence report. The data confirms exactly what he needs to know. The Carter Group is rapidly losing cash, desperate for an investor, and at its maximum vulnerability. Ethan immediately pivots. He stops acting as a traditional tech founder and shifts into the role of a highly aggressive corporate raider, preparing to exploit the exact weakness of the family that threw him away. When an agile disruptor outpaces a stagnant giant, the market doesn't offer a gentle transition. It forces a violent intersection where the decaying legacy is rapidly consumed by the innovation it ignored. Inside the Carter boardroom, the atmosphere is suffocating. The patriarch sits in the shadows of his failing empire, completely out of options. He's arranged a meeting with a mysterious, wealthy investor, desperately hoping this unknown savior will rescue his life's work. The door opens and Ethan walks in. Before the patriarch can even pitch a partnership deal, Ethan cuts him off. He coldly rejects any notion of shared control, demanding a complete, hostile transfer of all ownership immediately. The ultimatum is absolute and non-negotiable. The Carter family must sign over the entire legacy right then and there, or face complete, immediate financial annihilation by the end of the week. The patriarch pushes back, demanding to know who this fearless stranger is. And then comes the psychological shock. He looks closely and realizes that this apex conqueror dictating his survival is the exact same weak mistake he discarded into the cold years ago. The power dynamic in the room inverts in an instant. One party relied entirely on past glory and a recognizable name to sustain them, while the other ruthlessly built tangible, future leverage. Ethan injects the capital to save the company, finalizing his absolute dominance over the people who discarded him. By preventing a total collapse, he ensures the former owners remain under his direct authority for the foreseeable future. Rather than firing them, he executes the ultimate subversion of his revenge. He strips the former aristocrats of their executive titles and high salaries, forcing them into standard employee uniforms. If they want to survive, they will have to earn their respect through honest entry-level labor under his watch. This entirely dismantles the illusion of inherited privilege. The massive skyscraper and the family crest on the wall mean absolutely nothing when the underlying competence to manage them has rotted away. True, unshakable power can never be inherited, and it certainly cannot be protected by a family name alone. It is forged strictly through resilience, adaptability, and smart execution. And those who fail to earn it will inevitably find themselves working for those who did.